If you're a comedy nerd over 30 like me, you were probably really sad when Phil Hartman died back in the 90s. I remember when it happened. I remember seeing the news and trying to follow what went on. It was like his wife shot him, and they were being very vague about it. And I was a big fan of all of his work up until that point, and I loved his characters on The Simpsons, like Troy McClure or Lionel Hutz. And I felt the show really suffered from their absence pretty much the moment he was gone. Um, I was a huge fan of all of his SNL work. I thought he was part of the strongest cast since the original. And I've heard that that was mostly due to him. That the reason their work was so strong was because he was referred to as the glue. And I got that out of this book called Live from New York. It's really worth reading if you're into comedy and you're into like all the major players and how they came up. And you learn a lot about like how they got along or how they didn't get along. It's pretty cool. And in Live from New York, everyone loves Phil Hartman. Like there isn't a single person that would tell you they had a fight with him or a disagreement with him. They're like, no, he's the glue that held this group together. And if anything, he was extremely selfless in how he would make sure that he made you look good. They're like, he went to these pains to make sure that not only you were performing at your best, but that his work would complement yours. And he was just in it for the most maximum laughs with, everyone coming off great. And I've also mentioned in previous videos that I'm a huge fan of that whole must-see TV block in its prime. I thought that had some of the best writing on television in its prime. And it's that block of like Seinfeld, Friends, well, not so much Friends. Uh, I mean, I like Friends, but it doesn't really hit the sublime level of writing, and I'm going to use that word. It doesn't hit that sublime level of writing that, say, Seinfeld hit during its best episodes, Frasier hit during its best episodes, and News Radio hit during its best episodes. Because I consider News Radio to be right up there with those shows. There's a lot of cross-pollination behind the scenes on all those shows. So a lot of the same directors, writers that worked on Seinfeld, they also worked on News Radio. So it has a very similar vibe. It's very smart. It has a very snarky rapport amongst all the characters that's like, kind of like, it's just very entertaining to listen to. And you can tell that Phil Hartman in that ensemble was playing just a shade off of himself. He was playing Bill McNeil. And he was the, blowhard, the egotist. Like he thought his voice work on the radio was God's gift and that he was already inducted in the choir and you should all be kissing his butt. Like that was kind of his attitude. And it was great. Like there's even an episode where a reviewer calls him adequate and he's like, adequate, my God. Oh, thank you. High praise from Caesar. And like he calls the reviewer and he was like, thank you. Adequate. I don't get that every day. So again, so Phil Hartman died in between seasons 4 and 5 of News Radio. So if you're like me and you were following that show, you were really enjoying that show, it's suddenly like, boom, Bill McNeil's gone. Like the heart of the show. The funniest person on the show is gone. And they bring in Jon Lovitz, who I love. Like he's one of those guys where you look at him and you just start laughing. Like you look at him and you hear, hello. So he was the perfect person, and he was very close friends with Phil Hartman. And that's key. And because of that, we learn a lot of details about how Phil Hartman died and the circumstances around Phil Hartman's death and the people who were there and the major players in that incident. And chief among them apparently is Andy Dick. And if you listen to Jon Lovitz's account, Jon Lovitz says that Phil was having a Christmas party and he invited Andy Dick. And now Andy Dick will tell you that he was sort of Phil Hartman's protege or something, but everyone else says that that was more Andy's call. Like if you look into it, it's like Phil will say, or Andy will say that Phil was his mentor and that he took him under his wing like a father. And other people are like, he was trying to get Andy to clean up his fucking act and get his shit together because he was embarrassing everyone else and making everyone else pissed off with how like unprofessional and late and shitty and drunk he always was. And so Phil was like, I just want to see him do better and get his shit together. But Andy Dick will frame it like, oh, I was under his wing and he took, because I was just as talented and you know, kind of thing. And he saw his talent in me. No, it depends on who you listen to. But Jon Lovitz is very adamant that Andy Dick fed Phil Hartman's wife cocaine, and that she had been sober from cocaine for 10 years at that point, and that when Andy gave her whatever amount he gave her, she went completely nuts, and part of that bender was shooting Phil Hartman, William Burroughs style, while she was totally fucked up, you know. And she may not even be aware of what she did. I don't know. I don't know how fucked up she was. I don't know that the rest of those blanks. But there is someone on YouTube, ironically enough, who might be able to fill them in for you. And I know he gets really pissed off whenever anyone brings it up, and you should wonder why. For someone who's ostensibly part of the quote-unquote truth community, he has a lot of truth that he could be spilling. He has a lot of beans he could be spilling that he doesn't because, oh, you know, he's acting like it's out of class or tact or something, when it's really about blackmail. You know, it's really about the people that he would have to throw under the bus to talk about what really happened to Phil Hartman. You know, and how it's not uncommon in Hollywood what happened to him. These sordid stories of murder and people getting shot before 50 or dying in their bathtub before 50 or, you know, at 33 in Chris Farley and John Belushi's case. These people that just kick, these SNL alums that kick way too early. And people like Joe Rogan are like, that's none of your damn business and I'll thank you to stay out of my personal affairs. Fuck you, Kojak. You know, like, I know you know what happened. And I know that you try to act like, you know, oh, you know, Andy Dick pissed me off just as much as anybody. But you agree to these scenes with him where you're having a naked tickle fight and stuff like that. Give me a break. And I'm tired of people acting like Joe is better than me or this channel because he has more followers. And it's because he's partially famous. You know, he comes from news radio, he comes from Fear Factor, and so people just go, oh, there's a famous person. Maybe some of that magic will rub off on me if he responds to a comment. You know, maybe he'll pin one of my comments and I'll get some more followers. That's all they fucking care about. You know, he's no celebrity. You know, and these fucking assholes that act like we should all be kissing their ass because of these past accomplishments from like 20 fucking years ago, like Jim Carrey. And Joe Rogan's the same way. You fucking try to, like, bring up how Phil Hartman really died, and he gets all, like, shut the fuck up. You know, you shut the fuck up, Telly Savalas.